So it was very irresponsible on the part of the president. We'll go again. We'll go another time. This would have been my 9th trip.
Do you view this as retaliation for your letter about the State of the Union?
I would hope not. I don't think the president would be that petty, do you?
Trump offered Pelosi the chance to make the trip by flying on commercial flights instead of a taxpayer-funded military jet. Obviously, if you would like to make your journey by flying commercial, that would certainly be your prerogative, he said. The president added that he looked forward to meeting with Pelosi in the future to make a deal to end the shutdown. The Democrats were livid, including that weasel Representative Adam Schiff. They had already boarded the bus and were en route to the military aircraft when Trump pulled the plug on their trip. It was truly glorious watching them all have meltdowns. Then, yesterday afternoon, the president was warned about the First Lady's trip. You see, Melania Trump was scheduled to fly via military aircraft to Mar-a-Lago for the upcoming 3-day weekend. At first, his advisors were most probably cautioning the trip might be bad optics. But, would it be bad optics? What would be the problem with the First Lady flying when he grounded Pelosi? In fact, if the Speaker of the House and the Democrats acted badly accusing Melania of leaving when Pelosi could not, that is exactly what the president was hoping for. It would expose Pelosi's true motive for refusing to end the shutdown. So, being the team player that she is, the First Lady boldly got on that military plane last night. And all hell broke loose. Immediately the leftist media went nuts questioning why Melania could leave, and Nancy could not. Never fear, this was part of Trump's plan. CNN's so-called reporter Keith Boykin tweeted, so Trump would not allow House Speaker Nancy Pelosi to use a military jet for a bipartisan congressional delegation to visit the United States troops in Afghanistan, but just allowed his wife Melania Trump to use a military jet to fly to Palm Beach for a weekend in Mar-a-Lago. Trump hater NBC reporter Andrea Mitchell tweeted, Speaker Pelosi cannot use military plane to war zone, and NATO that speakers are entitled to for security since 9/11. Because she is in line of succession, but Melania Trump flew tonight to Mar-a-Lago on same type of military 757 from JBA. Alone. And the answer is simple, Nancy Pelosi is the Speaker of the House, and it's her job, #1 job, to come to the bargaining table to end the shutdown. That's why Trump canceled her flight. Melania Trump is the First Lady, and she has nothing to do with the shutdown. President Trump isn't leaving Washington, D.C., but Nancy was hell-bent on ditching her duty to the American people. Trump's plan had worked. Thanks to Melania, he put the spotlight back on Pelosi and why she needs to be in Washington. The fact that the Speaker was ready to leave for an entire week means she had no intention of even trying to stop the shutdown, and the American people clearly see that now. President Trump and Melania won this game of chess, exposing Nancy Pelosi as the sole person to blame for the continued government shutdown.
According to establishment politicians and the establishment media, President Trump is like some kind of demented bull in a china shop, barging into issues he doesn't understand with a dangerous combination of ignorance and bluster. But what if the real reason the Trump approach breaks so much china is that he's actually confronting problems that the IYIs, intellectual yet idiots, in the establishment have been running away from for years? And what if the real reason they hate him so much is that he's showing them up for their failures? In fact, some of the loudest voices on the left and the never-Trump right who scream abuse at President Trump literally helped create the mess he's now trying to clean up. Immigration is a perfect example.
The Trump shutdown is a completely manufactured crisis. Manufactured by Donald Trump.
Manufactured by President Trump. How about the result of policy failures which you, Chuck, were right at the heart of? Border Patrol apprehensions at the southern border, that didn't start in 2016. Look at these numbers. Over 3 million arrests in the last 10 years alone. And look at the humanitarian crisis. Hundreds of deaths every year. We're just showing the last decade. Here's a little fact check for you, Chuck. Donald Trump was not in office the last decade. But guess who was? You. You and all the geniuses who love to attack President Trump. What have you done to fix our broken immigration system? All these years, Pelosi and Schumer have been in Congress all these years, whether it's Bush or Obama, it's just talking, talking, talking. The Border Protection, Anti-Terrorism and Illegal Immigration Control Act of 2005 failed. The Secure America and Orderly Immigration Act of 2005 failed. The Comprehensive Immigration Reform Act of 2007 failed. President Bush's Southwest Border Enforcement Initiative in the 2009 budget failed. The Gang of Eight's Border Security, Economic Opportunity and Immigration Modernization Act of 2013 failed. 4 executive orders focused on immigration reform failed. And now, suddenly, it's all Trump's fault? These establishment politicians are just not serious. They're not serious about policy. They're not serious about reform. They're not serious about anything except writing pompous, self-regarding opinion pieces to impress each other at Washington dinner parties. It's the same on trade. They attack President Trump's trade strategy without pausing for 1 second to acknowledge the consequences of their own. But for decades, America's trade policy, supported by establishment Democrats as well as establishment Republicans, helped the people at the top, people like Jeff Flake's donors, and hurt working Americans. We talked a lot about wage stagnation after the Great Recession 10 years ago. But for most American workers, their wages, after taking account of inflation, were stagnant for decades. And guess who finally turned that around with the fastest wage increases for a decade last year? President Trump. The trade policy backed by all the Trump haters in Washington helped destroy close to 4 million manufacturing jobs. The geniuses said Trump's crazy tariffs would be a disaster. So how do they explain that last year was the best year for American manufacturing job growth since 1997, since before China joined the World Trade Organization? Speaking of which, the establishment's policy on China has obviously been a total failure. Even CNN's Fareed Zakaria now admits as much, writing that, quote, China has failed to enact promised economic reforms and backtracked on others, and uses formal and informal means to block foreign firms from competing in China's market. For decades, without so much as a peep from the Trump-hating establishment, China manipulated its currency and stole American technology. On top of that, according to an October 2018 study from the Economic Policy Institute, quote, the growth of the U.S. trade deficit with China between 2001 and 2017 was responsible for the loss of 3.4 million U.S. jobs. Oh, the trade deficit. It's stupid to worry about the trade deficit, say the geniuses in the establishment when Donald Trump describes it as a problem that needs to be tackled. Yeah, who cares about the trade deficit if you're a politician or a pundit? It's not your job that's going to China. It's not your community that's devastated when a factory closes down. Trump's critics, all of them, meekly went along with the establishment's humiliating China swoon. If we suck up to China, they said, China will reform. It will become more democratic. It will be our partner. No, Colin Powell, the last thing we needed was for you and your stupid policies to help bring America's #1 enemy to the brink of global domination. Yet that's exactly what you did in areas like quantum computing and artificial intelligence. And now you and all the other establishment idiots have the nerve to criticize President Trump for trying to clean up your mess by at last standing up to China. Oh, wait, that's because they really know foreign policy, whereas Trump, of course, is an ignoramus. Everybody who matters. I think you misspoke, Joe. You surely meant everybody who got it wrong for decades. According to the Brown University Cost of Wars project, the combined cost of America's post-9/11 wars has climbed to almost $6 trillion. And a combined study led by university researchers around the world found that about 500,000 people died in Iraq as a result of war-related causes between 2003 and 2011. When President Trump tries to change course, what does he get from the people who brought us these horrific failures? The impulsivity. What? That person you just saw literally helped persuade America to go to war on a lie. One of the costliest and bloodiest wars in modern history. But oh no, when President Trump announces his intention to withdraw from Syria and wean the Middle East off its reliance on a US president, suddenly he's the one who's destabilizing the area. What a total joke these people are. On issue after issue, yes, Trump is barging in. Yes, he is throwing out the old playbook. It's called change. And unlike Obama, who talked endlessly about change, President Trump is actually delivering it. Look, I'm not expecting the establishment to suddenly open their arms to Donald Trump, but considering their own role in creating the long-term challenges that this president is now addressing, could they just show a little humility before embarking on their next Trump-hating rant?